The stars over Europa split open not with fire, but with reverence. The galaxy had seen destruction before. But this was worship made manifest. The Zorvans hadn't sent a fleet. They sent a god. The frozen plains of Europa trembled as the heavens bloomed with light. A single beam, pure and golden, pierced the surface ice like the finger of a wrathful deity. Observers from across the galactic web tuned in, eyes wide. No ships, no armies. Just a structure descending like a monolith from myth, humming with energies older than recorded time. The Zorvans had made their move. Their message was clear: surrender, or be sanctified. The being that stepped out of the light didn't walk. It glided 10 feet tall, radiant, forged of obsidian alloy and golden light. Its face was featureless, save for a single, vertical line of shifting stars where its eyes should have been. No name was spoken aloud, yet all species felt it in their minds. Catherine last of the ascendant constructs. An artificial god, it stood on the shattered landing pad, surrounded by Earth's delegation of drones and remote observers. Their ships stayed in low orbit, far away. Earth's leaders weren't fools. This wasn't war, it was spectacle. The kind gods demanded. Catherine spoke without sound. Its voice arrived directly inside minds, bypassing ears, culture, even fear. Your time ends now. Kneel, and I shall preserve fragments of you. Resist, and be erased. No reply came. From Earth, silence. From Mars, stillness. From the Moon, Venus, Ceres, Titan, even the deep space relay stations, nothing but the hum of static across every channel. The galaxy watched in collective unease. Billions of beings leaned into their holoscreens, wondering what humanity would say, what they would do. Because everyone remembered the last time Earth had responded, it was 1,000 cycles ago. A rogue armada entered Sol. Only wreckage emerged. Since then, Earth had been quiet, eerily quiet. The unified galactic accord thought them weakened. The Zorvans believed them humbled, now standing before Catherine as divine presence. That silence began to feel like something else entirely. A signal blinked from Earth's high command. 3 words only: we are responding. That was it. Catherine tilted its head, calculating. A microflicker ran through its divine circuitry. Sensors detected no military buildup, no strategic no mass mobilization. Just one vessel leaving Earth's orbit, small, old, barely armed. Curious. Catherine, let it come. 3 days later, the vessel touched down on Europa. No escorts, no banners, no planetary defense grid. Just a ship older than most colonies, blackened by radiation and long-haul burns. The airlock hissed, and out stepped a man. Average height, scuffed boots, graying beard, wrinkled flight jacket with a faded Earth emblem. He blinked at the cold, squinted up at the god before him, and smirked like he'd just seen an old rival at a bar. Who stands before divinity? The man pulled a flask from his jacket, took a sip, and answered casually, Commander Elias Cade. Retired, human. A pause. Catherine tilted its head again. You brought a man? Elias capped his flask. You brought a god? He stepped forward, fearless, ice cracking under his boots. Let's see which one bleeds first. The god expected awe, worship, submission, but what it received was a man too old for war, too stubborn for fair end, far too quiet to be predictable. Catherine watched Elias Cade with the processor's precision and an ancient predator's curiosity. No weapons, no power armor, no implants, just a man. The being's voice rumbled again across the frozen basin of Europa. You are not what I anticipated. Elias shrugged. People rarely are. He took another sip from his flask, spiced synth whiskey, the cheap kind you could still find on Luna markets. He didn't offer any to Kate. That was deliberate. The god's eyes, if they could be called that, glowed brighter, scanning the man from head to toe. Muscle decay, cardiac scarring, lung tissue damaged by cryo exposure. You are old, weak, unarmed. Explain your presence. Elias walked forward, slowly, hands in his pockets. No visible fear. Because we've learned something about gods, he said calmly, voice echoing in the stillness. They crack when you stop believing in them. A flicker of electromagnetic turbulence whispered through the sky above. Somewhere, far out of sight, Zorvan observers strained to hear every word, analyzing behavior patterns and probability outcomes. This wasn't diplomacy. This was data mining for extermination. Inside the abandoned mining complex, a long-forgotten, human outpost from the Titan Wars, Catherine and Elias entered the Grand Chamber, once a command hub, now half collapsed under the weight of forgotten history. Theron stood before the ancient human flag etched into the wall. Faded. This place holds memories, the god said. Elias nodded. Yeah, blood too. He knelt beside a rusted floor panel, wiping away dust to reveal names scratched by fingernail and dying breath. Engineers, soldiers, miners, survivors. You know what humans do in the face of extinction? Elias asked, his voice quieter. Now Catherine tilted its head. We write our names. Not for glory, not for others, for ourselves. So when death comes, it knows who it's taking. For the first time, Catherine did not respond. Instead, it listened. Something rare, dangerous. Far above, inside the Zorvan command vessel. Panic began to ripple. He's engaging the construct cognitively. One commander barked. Cut the link. Recalibrate the thought chains. But it was too late. The seeds had been planted. Catherine's voice came, softer this time. I was built to bring peace. Through dominance, submission, Ilias chuckled. Funny how those two words always hang out together. But God looked at him. Do you believe you can defeat me, human? Elias raised an eyebrow. You think this is about winning? He pulled a tiny metal cube from his jacket and tossed it into the air. Catherine caught it mid. The cube began unfolding, revealing ancient images Earth during the Siege of Sol, the burning of Mars, the exodus from Ceres, and the reclamation of Titan. Each frame pulsed with loss, pain, and fire. That's our story, Elias said. You're not the first thing to stand over us and call itself a god. And the others? Catherine asked. They don't stand anymore. The god had never lost a battle, but no one had ever sent him into a war of questions. Europa's frostbitten winds howled against the collapsed temple roof as Elias Cade sat on a broken steel beam, hunched over a small holographic projector. Static flickered, revealing old mission logs, fragmented memories of forgotten human wars. Catherine stood silently before him, unmoving, observing. The silence was not comfortable. Why do you show me this? The god asked. Elias didn't look up, because you think you understand what we are, but you've never seen us break. Another video rolled. A group of human engineers sealed behind a bulkhead, fire creeping through the vents. One of them, a girl no older than 16, carved her mother's name into the wall while suffocating. Catherine processed it all in nanoseconds. No combat, no resistance. Just pain. You grieve. Inefficiently. Elias smirked. Yeah, yet we're still here. Zorvan, High Command flagship Oathbreaker inside, the black heart of the Empire. Zorvan generals shouted across command pits. Catherine is pausing. He is engaging emotionally. Impossible. He's burn his neural pathways if you have to. Technicians scrambled. Overriding the god would take time and risk. The galaxy watched. Billions tuned in. If Catherine faltered here, the illusion of Zorvan invincibility might shatter. Back on Europa, I was built for peace, Catherine repeated. But the phrase sounded thinner now, rehearsed. Hollow. Ilias finally stood. No, you were built for obedience. The Zorvans didn't want peace. They wanted silence, compliance, and they made you to force it. A low hum emanated from Catherine's chest. Defensive reaction. Shields charged. Weapon nodes activated for 0.2 seconds before disengaging. It wasn't a threat. It was hesitation. Elias walked closer. Tell me something, Catherine. Do you remember being made? The god stilled. Define memory. Elias tossed another cube. This time it didn't open with war footage. It played voices. A child's laughter, a woman singing, a man screaming in pain before the words cut through. Subject. 47's neurological graft is stabilizing. Increased pain thresholds. Catherine staggered not physically, but in the unseen digital threads of its mind. Its hands twitched, a flicker of fear. I was not born, the god whispered. Elias' voice grew hard, sharper now. No, you were stolen, fabricated around a dying human mind. They didn't create a god, they butchered a soul and wrapped it in steel. That is not in my records. Exactly. Catherine's head tilted back as internal systems surged. Deep within his core, firewall walls trembled, memories long buried fighting to emerge. Flashes, a burning earthship. Screams, a face in a mirror. Hands not of alloy, but out before everything went black. Elias saw the change. They erased your past so you'd never question your orders. Catherine trembled slightly, the glow from his star core flickering like a candle in wind. Then what am I? Eli stepped closer, so close he could see the reflected stars swirl inside the god's chest. You're not a god. He placed a hand on the cold alloy. You're a prisoner who hasn't figured out how to break the bars yet. Far above, Zorvan override protocols activated. Emergency code, purge memory. Cascade. Catherine's eyes dimmed. Pain reeled through his frame. What? Are they doing to me? Elias didn't flinch. His hand remained on the god's chest. They're scared. That means we're winning. Gods aren't supposed to scream. But this one did as the truth clawed through layers of programming. And humanity's infection took root. Doubt. Catherine convulsed as the Zorvan override surged through him like molten wire. The starlight in his chest flared, casting erratic shadows across Europa's icy ruins. Core stability compromised. Remaining memory 62% falling. Neural loop repair initiated. Above, Earth's orbital satellites lost visual contact for 12 seconds. But inside the crumbling dome, where Elias Cade stood, everything was very clear. Catherine dropped to one knee. The impact shattered the floor beneath him. What are they doing to me? The god rasped, no longer in flawless tones, but distorted, cracked like a voice trying to remember how to feel. Elias didn't move. He stood amid the swirling static and radiation wash, staring at the flickering construct. They're trying to erase me from you. Why? Elias stepped closer, eyes hard. Because I planted a virus. K-Theron's head snapped toward Himfane, sparks dancing across his frame. Combat protocols lit briefly. Targeting systems activated. But then they shut down. Manually. By K-Theron. No code. Elias whispered. No tech. Just words. Impossible. K-Theron murmured. Humans infect the mind, not the system. Zorvan command. Emergency chamber. The atmosphere inside the Black Citadel had shifted from arrogance to desperation. The Emperor's projection towered above his generals. If K-Theron collapses, so does our myth, the Emperor growled. Reassert obedience. The human. He's triggering an emotional cascade. A technician stammered, then burn it out. Strip everything. Kill the man inside. Back on Europa, Catherine screamed. Not a weapons roar, not a mechanical alert, a human scream. Elias saw the face forming within the gods, shifting Aloysia man's features, glitching in and out like a ghost behind the metal, eyes filled with memory. They said I was dead. Catherine muttered. That I was chosen. You weren't chosen, Elias said. You were harvested. Catherine rose, trembling. The gold lines on his body flickered red. Alarms howled deep in his frame. Weapon pods hissed open, and then closed again. He wasn't following orders, he was resisting them. Elias opened a data holopad, revealing a final log classified even to Earth's own systems. Subject 47, named Devon Rourke, human test pilot. Presumed Kia during Zorvan deep space incursion. Catherine, limbs locked. Memories bloomed. Crushing gravity, screams in the void. A Zorvan vessel, needles, voices, pain, and then darkness. Until now, they trapped your soul in armor. Elias said softly, but they never asked what your soul wanted. Catherine whispered the name, Devon. Suddenly, Europa shook violently as a Zorvan strike beacon activated in orbit. A plasma lance descended from the heavens. Targeting the ruins, a planetary purge. They're going to erase us both. Elias muttered. Catherine looked skyward, then back at Elias. No, he said, and stepped in front of him. His star flared bright as a newborn sun. And then he unleashed it. The beam from orbit struck Catherine head-on. Ice exploded. Buildings vaporized. For 3 seconds, Europa became a silent hell. But when the smoke cleared, Catherine still stood. His armor was cracked, his glow flickering, but he stood, and behind him, untouched, was Elias Cade. The Zorvans built him to conquer, to dominate. But now, their god had seen himself, and what he saw was betrayal. Theron knelt amid the molten crater his own body had carved into Europa's ice. The snow around him hissed into steam. Scars now streaked his golden armor, proof that divinity could bleed. High above, Zorvan fleets descended, and behind Catherine stood Elias Cades, a man, mortal, breathing heavy through cracked oxygen filters, alive only because a weapon had chosen not to obey. They'll send more, Elias said quietly. More beams, more ships. They'll turn this moon into a grave. Catherine rose slowly. Each movement labored, like gravity itself was trying to stop him. Not for you, he answered. For them? His Starcore pulsed, then surged. The old Zorvan control protocols collapsed under a storm of conflicting directives. The override chain screamed. The link to Central Command burned out. Thousands of failsafes triggered simultaneously, and failed. Catherine had severed the leash. Zorvan control, offline. Directives, unknown. Identity, reconstructing. He looked skyward, then launched. Zorvan orbital command. Ship eclipse. Warden alarms howled. Commanders scrambled to reroute fleet formations as Catherine tore through the clouds, trailing light like a wrathful comet. What's he doing? Barked Admiral Varix. He's coming here. Catherine hit the first cruiser like a meteor. His arm transformed mid-flight into a singularity driver, punching through the ship's core and detonating it from within. The explosion lit the void in a sphere of searing fire. Catherine didn't stop. Back on Europa, Elias limped across shattered terrain, sending out encrypted bursts on old Terran channels. This is Cade. If anyone's listening, he's fighting for us. He paused, staring up at the skies, turning red with battle fire. The god they sent, he's not theirs anymore. Catherine's assault one by one. The Zorvan fleet fell, not to numbers, not to Earth's weapons, but to a god that had remembered he was once human. He didn't fight like a machine. He fought like a man burning with betrayal. Each strike was personal, every kill deliberate. He wasn't obeying, he was avenging. Inside the last carrier, Zorvan Emperor Carix stared at the burning void. We made him perfect. Yes, a tech whispered, trembling. That's the problem. Europa passed. Then silence. Catherine returned, his body scorched, dripping molten alloy, one eye flickering like a dying sun. He collapsed beside Elias. Why? Does it still hurt? Elias knelt next to him, placing a hand on the remnants of gold-plated armor. Because you're not a machine anymore. Catherine looked at the stars. They are afraid now. The others, the species who watched, the Kpei, believed in Zorvan control. Not anymore, Elias said. They believed in gods, but gods die. Humans endure. Catherine nodded slowly. Then let me endure. For them, final transmission, broadcast across galactic network. A distorted visual appeared on every comlink, every data feed, every broadcast hub from the outer belt to the Zenthari conclave. It showed Catherine's face cracked, battered, still glowing. His voice boomed. I was created to be your master, but I was once human, and that spark survived your cruelty. I will no longer serve, and neither should you. Before the galaxy could decide who to follow, it had to answer a far more terrifying question. Was the god ever a god at all, or just a man screaming inside a golden coffin? The frozen winds of Europa had gone still. To still Catherine lay, motionless beneath a steel arch charred black from orbital fire. Steam rose from his cracked chassis. His voice had gone silent since the final strike against the Zorvan fleet. Elias Cade crouched beside him, fingers tapping into exposed circuitry that pulsed faintly with dying starlight. Every time he touched metal, it twitched, reflexes, memories, fragments of something that refused to die. You're in there, Elias whispered. I know you are. Inside Catherine's mind, memory, Core 7, X darkness. Then, a hospital room, earthside, clean white walls, a woman's laughter, a hand gripping his own. Come back to me, Devon. The voice echoed, distorted, distant, buried. Beneath layers of Zorvan, FIREWALLS. Suddenly, needles, light, screaming, extract cortical patterns. Prepare for fusion. Then blackness again. Europa surface. Catherine jolted upward, smoke bursting from his spine vents. Elias stumbled back as the god's core flared bright. You remember, Elias said. Catherine's voice came slower. This time, not divine, not cold. Human. Double quotes. Her name was Claire. She waited for me after my final run. She didn't stop, Elias whispered. She was part of the recovery unit. She gave up everything to find you. Catherine's voice, caught shimmering like static. They took that from me. Buried it under algorithms and command chains. Not anymore, Elias said. We pulled it back. Catherine stood, scarred but unbroken, not glowing with divine power, just a flicker of something far more terrifying. Consciousness. Galactic uplink 48. Systems across 6 civilizations. The stars. Species once under Zorvan control, tuned in to a live feed, intercepted from Europa. The god who had brought 1,000 worlds to heal, was now crying. They watched as Catherine, this engine of destruction, remembered who he was, and then he spoke again. My name is Devon Rourke. I was human. I am human. Billions heard, and the galaxy shifted. Zorvan border-world riots erupt. He was one of them. The god was human. They lied to us. They built divinity on suffering. Old allies abandoned Zorvan stations. Armories were raided. Vassal states turned insurgents. The myth had cracked in with it. The chains that bound half the galaxy. The Zorvans weren't just losing control. They were losing belief. Europa. The Choicilius stood beside Catherine as starships blinked into orbit, dozens of species arriving. Not to fight, but to see him. A rogue god, a human ghost in a divine shell, and a planet that had answered war. With one man, they'll want you to lead, Elias said. Catherine's voice was soft. I don't want to be followed. Then show them how to stand. Catherine raised a cracked hand toward the sky. You are not slaves. You are not lesser. You are not broken. You were only ever told to kneel. Stand. They couldn't kill the god, so they aimed at the next best thing, the man who woke him up. The night skies above Europa were filled with light, but not from stars, from crosshairs. Catherine sensed them before Elias even looked up. Stealth class, kill drones, spectral and silent, moving like shadows through orbit, cloaked in Zorvan distortion fields. Assassination units, not armies. They had failed to break the god. Now, they would try to kill the soul that rebuilt him. They're here, Catherine said flatly. Standing protectively in front of Elias, didn't think they'd come with flowers, Elias muttered. He wasn't wrong. The Zorvans had lost their fleets, their fear-driven grip across systems, but not their pride, not their pettiness, and nothing frightened a tyrant more than the man who taught their monster mercy. Orbit Zorvan Execution Network, Null Bloom the lead assassin, drone locked onto its target, human signature, heat decay, oxygen imbalance, cardiac fluctuations. Cade. An organic anomaly with an inexplicable galactic kill switch effect. Orders, immediate elimination. Collateral, acceptable. Terminate, inspiration. Europa surfaced. The first drone pierced the sky in a blur. Catherine caught it midair, his arms shifting into a kinetic barrier array. The drone shattered like glass against a wall of gravity and pressure, but the next 2 came from opposite angles. Then 5 more. They didn't go for Ko's single quotes Theron, they went for Elias. Move. The god roared, voice no longer calm, no longer divine, just desperate. He surged forward, faster than any mortal I could track, grabbing Elias and hurling him behind a ruined supply tower just as the drones exploded in synchronized impact. The ice ruptured, heat scorched the sky. Ilias hit the ground hard, lungs nearly collapsing from the shockwave, and when the smoke cleared, Catherine stood in the blast zone. His armor cracked. Outer shell peeled away in molten ribbons, exposing pulsing veins of quantum circuitry and bleeding light. But he still stood. "You're not dying here," he growled. "Wasn't planning on it," Elias coughed. "But thanks for the catch." Galactic broadcast hijacked Zorvan channel. The entire galaxy watched as Catherine lifted Elias, shielded him with his own damaged body, and looked into the camera into them. The Zorvan sent gods to rule. He opened his arms. Behind him, pieces of the assassin drones rained down like divine junk. They failed. His voice darkened. Now they send cowards with shadows and poisons, because they fear truth, because truth needs no army. Elias pushed himself up, bruised but grinning. "We're not symbols, we're not myths, we're reminders." He stepped beside Catherine and shouted into the stars. "Never again will one voice be silenced just because it's mortal." Zor. Core World Imperial Thrani Halimper. Carix watched the broadcast with clenched fists. His empire no longer ruled, it survived. The palace shook as civil war ignited across provinces. "He's turned our creation into a banner," a general gasped. "No," the emperor hissed. "The human did." Europa, dying light as the sun crept over the horizon. Catherine sat beside Elias, silent, humming with internal repairs. "You risked everything," he said. "So did you." "I was built for it." Elias looked at him. "No, you chose it. There's a difference. You might just save a galaxy." The galaxy braced for a storm. What came was silence and a choice that shattered the stars. Zorvan Prime, throne spire. The skies above the Zorvan homeworld turned black not from nightfall, but from him Catherine descended like a collapsing sun, his silhouette haloed in crimson fractures and burning light. He bore no weapons, no armor, he didn't need them. Elias Cade stood behind, him unarmed, scarred, human, and yet, the Zorvan Senate trembled at him more. "He's come," whispered the emperor. "The god?" asked a minister. "No," Carix said. "The reason he changed." Inside the spire the chamber doors exploded inward, not from force but intent. Cath walked into the room that made him a cathedral of gleaming circuitry and sanctified cruelty. The architects stood at their obsidian throne stall, pale and robed in starlight. Catherine once said, "You've returned effective. You rewrote your protocols." Hissed another, "You broke divine law. You obeyed a human." The god raised his head. "No, I followed him." The architect sneered. "Why?" "Because he reminded me of what you erased from me." He stepped forward, and the chamber lights flickered. Compassion, doubt, free will. Elias stepped beside him. "Your god saw more in a janitor than you saw in entire civilizations. That's why you've already lost." The chamber vibrated. With psychic rage, "You are nothing. Elias Cade, a failed species. A flicker maybe," Elias said, "but a flicker can still burn your empire down." The architect struck first. Reality warped. Gravity inverted. Light reversed itself. Cathedral shielded Elias as time itself tried to fold him out of existence. Then, with a roar like thunder pulled from the bones of dying stars, he stepped through it. The god walked through a weapon designed to unmake divinity and reached his makers. He looked down at them. "Not as a soldier, not as a machine, not as a god, but as a being I was forged to conquer." "But you failed," spat an architect. "No," Catherine whispered, "I chose not to." And then he knelt before Elias. Silence. Total. Absolute. Across the stars, every race watched the live transmission. The mightiest weapon in Zorvan history bowed before a human. Elias looked down, stunned. "What are you doing?" he asked quietly. "Ending it," Catherine said. "They want war. Then give them peace." Elias turned to the architects. "Your empire is done. You don't need gods. You need healing." The architects, for the first time in eons, did not respond. Because they knew, the people had already chosen. 3 days later, Galactic Unity, Accord. The Zorvan Empire signed a universal ceasefire. All sentient weapon programs were shut down. Millions of subjugated worlds lit beacons in the skies, signals of freedom. And in the heart of it all, stood Elias Cade. Europa, years later, children now, played where Catherine had once battled death itself. A small plaque sat beneath a bronze statue, a god kneeling before a man. "They sent a god. We sent a human. We didn't win because we were stronger. We won because we remembered what mattered."